Hey everyone, welcome to another video. So in this video, we'll try and understand the implications of GST on the supply of services or provision of services by clubs to its members, or supply of goods or commodities by clubs to its members, and the other way around also. So before we conclude whether GST will apply or not, it is important to understand whether this particular transaction will fall under the scope of GST. So let's look at that first. Now in GST law, there are a lot of definitions, but we look at two specific important definitions. One is the definition of a person, and under this, the definition includes association of persons or AOPs, body of individuals or BOIs, and of course, clubs being communities, social clubs and all that. So the first point to note here is that clubs per se is included in the definition of person, which gives rise to the levy of GST. Number one. Number two, you have another definition of business, and under that, the transaction between a club and its members, or the activity that involves the transaction between a club and its members, which involves the provision of services, supply of goods for a payment, cash, deferred payment, whatever, tantamounts to business. It is in the course of business or the furtherance of business, and therefore it's included in the definition of business, giving rise to the concept of GST. So if you look at person and business, two definitions under GST, for both these clubs, transaction between clubs and members will fall under these two definitions, and this further gives rise to the levy of GST. But the real question here is that should the club and members be treated as two different distinct persons, or can it be treated as a single party or a single person? Of course, for GST to be levied, there should be the thing called supply. And for supply to be there, there should be one person identified as supplier and another person identified or identifiable as a recipient. There cannot be a supply with one particular person. There should be two different distinct persons on one side. On the other side, you have the principle of mutuality, which says that there is no club existing without its members. There is no association of persons without the members. There is no body of individuals without the members. So club and members, or association members, or BOI and members is one single person, and therefore this follows the principle of mutuality, which says that both cannot be treated as two different persons. It is only one person. There cannot be a supply with one person alone. So dilemma really here is between the principle of mutuality or concept mutuality and the concept of two different distinct persons. Now in 2019, the Supreme Court gave a favorable verdict for Calcutta Club, wherein it said that the provision of services by Calcutta Club to its members will not attract GST. There will be no GST on such provision of services or supply of goods because of the concept of mutuality or principle of mutuality, wherein it says that both Calcutta Club and its members shall be considered as one particular person, and there cannot be a supply with one person alone, and therefore there is no GST. This was a Supreme Court case. But in 2021, the government further amended the GST law, and it included in the definition of the scope of supply was further broadened or increased to include the transaction between the club and its members, wherein it said that these two persons shall be treated as two distinct persons and not one particular person. So what the government did was, although in 2021 they brought about this particular amendment wherein said that the club and members shall be considered as two separate persons, and when there is a supply in the nature of business for payment between two separate persons, GST will definitely apply. This amendment, although brought about in 2021, the government gave a retrospective effect, which means from 1st of July 2017, that's basically the first day when GST came into picture, this amendment will apply. So all those clubs which were not charging GST previously for the services and all that will have to go back and calculate GST on their services that they provide to the members, which was a humongous, difficult task. Now, recently in 2025, the Kerala High Court, in the case of IMA, Indian Medical Association, gave a verdict in the line of what the Supreme Court did for Calcutta Club. What it said is that IMA providing services to its members who are basically doctors shall be out of the purview of GST, not because of the concept of mutuality. What the Kerala High Court said is that you cannot go and amend the GST law without amending the Indian Constitution. In other words, You cannot include the transaction between a club and its members in the scope of supply without removing the concept of mutuality from supply, therefore, without amending Article 366 and 246A of the Indian Constitution. Simply saying, you cannot amend GST law or given for that fact any law without amending the Indian Constitution. So if you have to amend GST law, you have to go amend the Indian Constitution, particularly 366 and 246A, then amend GST law and then bring about a retrospective, prospective effect, whatever. So therefore, the Kerala High Court summarized by saying that the department can only levy GST from 1st of July 2017, and this particular levy is constitutionally invalid. There is no clarity in law, absolutely no clarity in law. It is constitutionally invalid because it flouts Article 366 and 246A. It is absolutely no clarity in law. This retrospective something, this effect will have a huge compliance burden for clubs because they were never charging GST on the services supplied to members or goods or commodities supplied to the members. So as of now, because of the Supreme Court case and because of the Kerala High Court case, we can confidently say that as of now, there is no GST on supply of services or goods provided by the clubs to its members or other way around. But the central government has challenged the IMA case of the Kerala High Court and they have filed an appeal to the Supreme Court. As we speak, the Supreme Court is yet to review the entire case, and very soon they will also pass a judgment which could be in favor against IMA or against what the Kerala High Court said. But as of now, it's a good thing. There is no GST that will be levied on the supply of goods or services. If you look at the two High Court the two case laws, there will be no GST on supply of goods from or services from clubs to its members. But if you look at the law still stands amended wherein GST will apply. So therefore, we'll have to just wait and watch as to what the Supreme Court says in the case of IMA, and then probably the government will realize that this retrospective thing is not possible and further re-amend the law. Well, I hope I was able to make things clear through this particular video. If you like the video, you could show the support to us by hitting the like button. If you want more videos like these on a regular basis through way of notifications, you could also think of hitting on the subscribe button. Till then, I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care and thank you.